The man called Johnny Cash. Johnny Cash was born on February 26, 1932 in Kingsland, Arkansas. He was one of 7 children born to Ray and Carrie Rivers Cash. He moved with his family at the age of 3 to Dyess, Arkansas, so his father could take advantage of the New Deal farming programs instituted by President Roosevelt. There, Johnny spent 15 years out in the fields with his family. By age 10, he was hauling water for a road gang, and at 12 years old, he was moving large sacks of cotton. In 1950, Cash graduated high school and made his way up to Michigan, Pontiac, Michigan, where he found work sweeping floors at an auto plant. He was only there for a month before he took off and bolted towards the United States Air Force. Johnny Cash took his basic training in Texas, where he met Vivian Liberto, whom he'd eventually marry, and a father of 4 daughters with. He was stationed in Landsberg, West Germany, where he worked as a radio intercept officer, eavesdropping on Soviet radio traffic. It was also in Germany that Cash began to turn more of his attention toward music. With a few of his Air Force buddies, he formed the Landsberg Barbarians, giving Johnny a chance to play live shows, teach himself more of the guitar, and also take a shot at songwriting. With always being out in the fields, his mother would play the guitar to him at night, and people in the field would be singing songs all day. Johnny Cash first picked up a guitar at age 12. Carrie Rivers Cash scraped together enough money so that Johnny could take singing lessons. Just 3 lessons in, his teacher, enthralled with Cash's already unique singing style, told him to stop taking lessons and to never deviate from his natural voice. In 1954, Cash brought a $5 guitar back from Germany once he was discharged, and was a front man in Johnny Cash and the Tennessee 2. Their sound was blues and a country and western music, which they adopted the rockabilly. The $1 Million Quartet. Sam Phillips, who was Sun Records' owner, gave Johnny Cash and the Tennessee 2 their first break. They showed up at her doorstep unannounced and without an audition. She gave the boys a chance, and they came back and returned later that year. In early 1955, they made their first recording, Hey Porter, which you can go to at the YouTube site right there. Followed up by their second single, Cry Cry Cry, which hit the Billboard charts at number 14. Oops. This quartet continued on with a pair of top 10 singles, such as So Doggone Lonesome and Folsom Prison Blue. Fame really came though in 1956 when Johnny Cash got the number 1 on the charts and sold 2 million copies of what everyone knows, I Walk the Line. The success of this allowed Cash to join an elite group of artists that included Elvis Presley, Carl Perkins, and Jerry Lee Lewis. In 1960, Johnny Cash moved his family to California and left Sun for Columbia Records in 1958. He was working 300 nights a year, and all the stress took a toll on his personal life. Drugs and alcohol were his tour companions while his wife was at home. She couldn't handle it as much as he couldn't, and she filed for divorce in 1966. A quote from Johnny himself: "I took all the drugs there are to take, and I drank. I was walking around town 150 pounds. I looked like walking death." After a serious drug binge, Cash was discovered in a near-death state by a policeman in a small village in Georgia. Didn't stop there though. He also got arrested for smuggling amphetamines into the U.S. across the Mexican border and accidentally starting a forest fire in Tennessee, which resulted in a near six-figure fine for the singer. After his divorce with his wife, in 1967, Cash met June Carter, who in 1968 ended up marrying Johnny Cash himself. She helped turn him around for better and kicked his drug habit and cleaned up his life. In 1969, Johnny started hosting The Johnny Cash Show, which was a TV variety series that showcased contemporary musicians ranging from Bob Dylan to Louis Armstrong. It was also a forum for Cash to explore a number of social issues too, tackling discussions that ranged from the war in Vietnam to prison reform to the rights of Native Americans. The same year, Johnny took home 2 Grammy Awards for the live album Johnny Cash at Folsom Prison. With Cash's life turning around for the better, he and his new wife June Carter had their first kid together, first and only kid. And while his career was still flourishing, he released 2 more hit singles, A Thing Called Love and One Piece at a Time. Continuing on with his success, in 1980, Cash was accepted as the youngest member of the Country Music Association Hall of Fame. He continued on making albums, for example The Highwayman in 1985. Cash joined with Chris Christopherson, Willie Nelson, and Waylon Jennings himself. They didn't stop there though. They made a next Highwayman record, and also The Road Goes On Forever. Old age was getting to Johnny Cash himself. In 1983, Johnny had to undergo abdominal surgery in Nashville to correct problems caused by years of amphetamine use. In 1987, Cash went under the knife again, but for heart surgery following his collapse on tour in Iowa. But in 1992, things started looking better for him when he was inducted to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. The American Recordings were released in 1994 and earned a Grammy Award for Best Contemporary Folk Album. American Recordings was a 13-track acoustic album that mixed traditional ballads with modern compositions. In Johnny Cash's final years, he was diagnosed with a rare nervous system disorder called Shy-Drager syndrome. Cash's health continued to decline, and he barely made any public appearances, but his heart was most broke when June Carter died in May of 2003. Even though he continued to work, it was still tough on him. And September 12, 2013, the legend himself, Johnny Cash, passed away from complications associated with diabetes. Hurt was the last song he ever wrote, and it continues to be a hit to this day. His legacy still lives on, and he still has won posthumous awards, Grammy Awards in fact, for Best Short Film Music Video, and he was honored at the CMA Annual Awards in late 2003, winning Best Album for American for Best Single and Best Video. And these are the works sightings in the most famous Johnny Cash picture of all time. Ladies and gentlemen, Johnny Cash himself.